The city pulsed outside the tinted windows of the Mercedes S-Class, a blur of neon and brake lights. Inside, the world was hushed leather, cool air conditioning, and the faint scent of lemon polish. Nathan kept his eyes on the rain-slick streets. His hands relaxed at 10 and 2, navigating the post-theater traffic with smooth, unhurried precision. In the back seat, Aris Thorne scrolled through his phone, a glow illuminating the sharp lines of his face. He was exhausted. Another successful acquisition finalized. Another late night fueled by adrenaline and single malt scotch that now sat heavy in his stomach. He barely registered the city. It was just the obstacle course between the office and the sterile luxury. Of his penthouse? Long night, Mr. Thorne? Nathan's voice, low and calm, cut through the silence. Wasn't intrusive, just present, observant. Aris glanced up, meeting Nathan's eyes in the rearview mirror. They were a warm, steady brown, framed by thick lashes most men would kill for. Nathan had been driving him for 6 months now, ever since his previous driver retired. He was impeccably professional, punctual, discreet, knew the city like the back of his hand, and possessed an unnerving ability to anticipate Aris's needs. A chilled bottle of water after a grueling meeting. The car warmed on a frosty morning, the subtle detour avoiding a known traffic snarl. "Usual corporate warfare, Nathan," Aris replied, his voice rough. "Just glad it's over." He leaned his head back against the cool leather headrest, closing his eyes. The gentle hum of the engine, the rhythmic swish of the wipers. Nathan's quiet competence. It was the closest thing to peace he ever felt in transit. Nathan simply nodded, his gaze returning to the road. Aris studied the reflection. Nathan was probably mid-30s, with close-cropped dark hair starting to show a hint of distinguished silver at the temples. His profile was strong, a straight nose, a firm jawline softened slightly by the curve of his lips. He wore the standard driver's uniform, black suit, white shirt, but wore it with an ease that suggested comfort, not constraint. There was a quiet strength about him, an unflappable solidity Aris found himself increasingly relying on, not just for transportation, but as a fixed point in his otherwise chaotic, high-stakes world. He'd never pried into Nathan's life. Wasn't done. The driver was part of the service, like the car itself. Efficient, reliable, impersonal. Yet lately Aris found himself noticing little things. The faint calluses on Nathan's hands when he opened the door, the way he sometimes hummed softly, almost inaudibly, to classical music playing on the low volume sound system. The genuine warmth in his brief "Good morning, Mr. Thorne" that felt different from the rote pleasantries of his staff. Tonight, the silence felt different too, thicker. Aris shifted, the leather sighing beneath him. "How was your evening?" "Before this, The question surprised him as much as it seemed to surprise Nathan, whose eyebrows lifted slightly in the mirror. "Quiet, sir," Nathan replied smoothly, his eyes flicking back to the mirror for a second. "Caught up on some reading. Made dinner." He paused. "My sister called. Her son just started walking." A small, genuine smile touched his lips, transforming his professional reserve into something disarmingly human. Aris found himself smiling faintly in response. Ah, big milestone. He couldn't remember the last time he'd celebrated something so simple, so fundamentally human. His life was boardrooms, stock prices, and strategic maneuvers. "You're close with your family?" Nathan confirmed. Navigating a tricky merge, try to be, helps ground things. He didn't elaborate, but the simple statement resonated. Grounding. Something Aris desperately lacked. They lapsed back into silence, but it felt less like emptiness now, more like a shared space. Aris watched the raindrops streak the window. Distorting the city lights, he thought about Nathan's life. The quiet apartment, the family phone call, the simple act of making dinner. It felt real, tangible. Unlike the gilded cage of his own existence, the car glided to a smooth stop outside Aris's building. The sleek glass tower pierced the rainy night sky. Nathan was out of the driver's seat instantly, umbrella deployed before. Aris had even fully gathered his briefcase. He opened the rear door, holding the umbrella steady against the downpour. Here you are, Mr. Thorne. Rain glistened on the shoulders of Nathan's dark coat. Eris stepped out, momentarily close under the shelter of the umbrella. He caught the scent of clean cotton, a faint trace of cedarwood, and something warm and uniquely Nathan. It was nice, comforting. He looked up, meeting Nathan's eyes directly for the first time without the barrier of the rearview mirror. They were even warmer up close, holding a quiet depth and an unexpected flicker of something. Concern? Curiosity? Thank you, Nathan, Eris said, his voice softer than intended. Not just for the ride. For the calm. Nathan held his gaze for a beat longer than strictly necessary. The rain drummed on the umbrella fabric. Part of the service, sir, he replied, but his tone was gentle, lacking its usual professional detachment. There was a subtle emphasis on the word part. Eris felt a strange jolt, a warmth that had nothing to do with the scotch. He nodded, suddenly awkward. Right? Well, good night, Nathan. Good night, Mr. Thorne. Sleep well. Nathan's gaze lingered for another second before he stepped back. Closing the car door, Eris stood under the building's awning, watching the Mercedes pull away, its taillights blurring in the rain. The scent of Nathan, cedar, and warmth seemed to linger. He replayed the moment under the umbrella, the direct eye contact, the nuance in Nathan's voice. Part of the service. Inside the sterile marble lobby, the silence felt oppressive. The penthouse elevator ascended swiftly, its mirrored walls reflecting a man who suddenly felt acutely alone. He thought about Nathan driving home, maybe listening to that classical music, thinking about his nephew walking. A life lived simply, deeply. Eris unlocked his penthouse door, stepping into the vast, minimalist space. It was immaculate, cold, echoing. He poured himself another scotch, not because he wanted it, but because the ritual filled the silence. He stood by the floor-to-ceiling window, looking down at the wet, glittering city. Somewhere down there, Nathan was navigating the streets towards his own life. The professional distance he'd always maintained with Nathan felt suddenly flimsy, a thin veneer over something else. He'd hired Nathan for his discretion and reliability. He hadn't expected this noticing. This strange pull towards the calm presence behind the wheel. This curiosity about the man who existed beyond the uniform in the rearview mirror. He took a sip of the scotch. The burn familiar, but offering no comfort. The reflection in the dark window showed a successful, powerful man. But for the first time in a long time, Eris Thorne felt a different kind of ache. Not for a deal, not for a win, but for the grounded warmth he'd glimpsed. Just for a moment, under an umbrella held by steady hands. The rain continued to fall, obscuring the city below, mirroring the sudden, confusing blur within his own carefully ordered world. The drive was over, but the journey, Eris realized with a startling clarity, felt like it was just beginning. And it wasn't just a route on a GPS anymore. It felt unnervingly personal. The rain had stopped, leaving the city washed clean and glistening under a pale morning sun. Aris stood by his penthouse window, nursing a strong black coffee. The events of the previous night replaying in his mind like a film reel stuck on a particularly intriguing frame. Nathan's steady eyes, the warmth in his voice when he spoke of his nephew, the subtle scent of cedar and cotton under the umbrella, and that disconcerting flutter in his own chest. It felt alien, unsettling. He dealt in control, in predictable outcomes. This, noticing, was not part of the program. The sleek Mercedes purred to a stop precisely at 7 a.m. Eris took a deep breath, smoothing his tie, slipping back into the armor of Eris Thorne, titan of industry. He stepped out of the building's cool interior. Nathan was already out, holding the door. "Good morning, Mr. Thorne." The greeting was perfectly professional, the warmth from last night carefully banked, but Eris fancied he saw a flicker of something more in those brown eyes as they met his. Or was he projecting? "Morning, Nathan," Eris replied, his voice clipped, settling into the backseat. What? The familiar scent of lemon polish and leather enveloped him, now underscored by that faint, comforting trace of Nathan's cedar, maybe soap. He focused intently on his tablet, pulling up market reports, determined to bury the disquiet under a deluge of data. The drive downtown was smooth, the city still waking up. Silence reigned, thick and awkward in a way it never had before. Aris could feel Nathan's presence acutely, the quiet efficiency of his driving. The occasional glance in the rearview mirror that Aris carefully avoided meeting. He scrolled through emails, unseared. His phone buzzed. His PA, Alina, asterisk, Aris. The Tokyo call has been moved up. They need you online in 20 minutes. Can you take it in the car? Asterisk Aris swore under his breath. His office was still 30 minutes. Away in this traffic, Nathan, he said, his voice tight with irritation. Change of plan. I need a secure, quiet location to take an urgent video conference call in 15 minutes, somewhere private. The demand was unreasonable, a test of Nathan's legendary resourcefulness born purely from Aris's own frayed nerves. Nathan didn't miss a beat. Understood, sir? His voice remained calm, professional. He smoothly signaled and changed lanes. Aris watched his profile focused, unruffled. 5 minutes later, they pulled into the discreet underground garage of a luxury hotel Nathan seemed to know well. He parked in a shadowed corner. Conference room, beyond the mezzanine level, is reserved for platinum guests, sir, Nathan said, turning slightly in his seat. I know the concierge. They'll grant you access for an hour. Should be quiet and secure at this time, he held out. A keycard. I'll wait here. Aris stared, momentarily speechless. He hadn't even specified the need for a room. Nathan had anticipated it. The efficiency was staggering, but it was the calm assurance, the lack of any hint of I told you so, that struck Aris most deeply. Thank you, Nathan, he managed, taking the keycard. That's exceptional. A small, acknowledging nod. Part of the service, Mr. Thorne. The phrase again. By this time it didn't feel impersonal. It felt like a quiet competence offered without fanfare, a lifeline thrown precisely when needed. Aris hurried to the conference room, the call a blur of high-stakes negotiation conducted from a plush, anonymous room he owed entirely to the man waiting downstairs, an hour later. The deal secured, Aris walked back to the car, the tension of the call replaced by a different kind of buzzing energy. Nathan stood leaning against the Mercedes, checking his phone. He straightened instantly as Aris approached. All good, sir? It's better than good, Nathan. You've saved the day. Reese slid into the back seat, a genuine, weary smile touching his lips. Seriously, thank you. Nathan met his gaze in the mirror, a hint of a smile playing on his own lips. Glad to hear it, sir. He started the car. Back to the office, please. Aris leaned back, the adrenaline fading, leaving him drained but strangely. Lighter, he watched Nathan navigate out of the garage. The silence now felt different, comfortable, charged with an unspoken understanding. The rest of the week unfolded in a similar rhythm, but the dynamic had shifted. Aris found himself initiating more conversation, small exchanges that breached the professional barrier. Your nephew walking yet? Aris asked one morning, genuinely curious. Nathan's face lit up in the mirror. Trying to run, sir? My sister sent a video yesterday. Looks like he's trying to break the land speed record in their living room. He chuckled, a warm, rich sound that filled the car. Aris found himself smiling broadly, a real smile that reached his eyes. Sounds chaotic. The best kind, sir, Nathan replied, his voice soft. Another evening stuck in gridlock, Aris confessed. I envy that sometimes. The chaos, the realness. The admission slipped out, surprising him. Nathan was quiet. For a moment, his gaze fixed ahead. It has its moments, sir, he finally said, his tone thoughtful. But it's not always easy. Bills, worries, the daily grind. He glanced back. Your world, it has a different kind of weight. Aris nodded, the truth of it resonating. Different cages, he murmured, almost to himself. Nathan didn't reply. But Aris felt seen, understood in a way no board member or socialite ever could. Friday arrived, bringing a sweltering heat wave. Aris had a weekend retreat planned, a tedious but necessary schmooze fest at a partner's sprawling Hamptons estate. Normally, he'd fly, but the chopper was grounded for maintenance. Looks like it's the car. Nathan, he sighed, dumping his overnight bag beside him. Long drive ahead. Not a problem, sir, Nathan said smoothly. I've packed extra water and chilled towels. We'll take the most efficient route. He already had the air conditioning set to Arctic blast. The drive out of the city was brutal, heat shimmering off the asphalt. Reese worked for a while, then gave up, the glare on his tablet too much. He watched the suburbs blur past, then the landscape opening up towards the coast. Nathan drove with unwavering focus, his posture relaxed but alert. The monotony of the highway, the cool air, the low hum of the engine, and the profound sense of safety Nathan projected finally lulled. Eris's head nodded, then slowly, inevitably, tipped sideways. He drifted into a shallow sleep, his temple coming to rest against the cool glass of the window. He awoke with a start sometime later, disoriented. The light was softer, golden late afternoon. He realized his head wasn't against the window anymore. It was resting on something firm, yet yielding. He blinked, his vision clearing. He was leaning against Nathan's shoulder. Panic shot through him, jerked upright, heat flooding his face. Nathan, I'm so sorry. I didn't. I must have. Nathan kept his eyes on the road, his hands steady. On the wheel, there was no tension in his posture, no discomfort. It was only a faint flush high on his cheekbones betrayed any reaction. Perfectly all right, sir, he said, his voice remarkably calm, though perhaps a fraction deeper than usual. You were asleep. Didn't want you straining your neck against the window. He paused, then added, We're about 20 minutes out. Eris stared at him, his heart pounding. Nathan hadn't moved him. He'd let him sleep there, his head on. His shoulder, for Ari's, had no idea how long. The intimacy of it was staggering. The trust implicit in Nathan's stillness was even more profound. Eris remembered the solid warmth, the scent of clean cotton and cedar intensified at such close proximity. It hadn't felt wrong. It had felt safe. Deeply, unnervingly safe. I thank you, Eris stammered, utterly flustered, straightening. His rumpled shirt couldn't meet Nathan's eyes in the mirror now. Of course, sir, Nathan replied, his tone returning to its usual professional cadence. But Eris sensed a subtle undercurrent, a shared awareness of the breached boundary, the unexpected closeness. The air in the car crackled with unspoken questions as they turned onto the long, tree-lined driveway leading to the imposing Hamptons estate. Eris felt completely unmoored. The carefully constructed walls between Mr. Thorne and his driver had developed cracks, and through them, something else, something warm, confusing, and utterly compelling, was flooding in. He glanced at Nathan's profile, the strong line of his jaw, the focused gaze. The drive was ending, but the journey into this uncharted territory, Eris knew with a jolt of both fear and exhilaration, was accelerating. The Mercedes glided too. A stop, but the engine of whatever was happening between them felt like it was just roaring to life. The Hamptons estate materialized, sprawling lawns, manicured hedges, colossal shingle-style mansion radiating expensive sterility. Reese felt profoundly out of place. The lingering warmth of Nathan's shoulder, a stark contrast to the cool reception awaiting him. He smoothed his jacket, the phantom pressure still tingling against his temple. Thank you, Nathan, he said, his voice clipped, the awkwardness from the car clinging like humidity. It shouldn't be more than 2 days. The guest house is around. Back for drivers? He gestured vaguely, avoiding Nathan's eyes in the rearview mirror. Get some rest. I'll call if needed. Understood, sir. Nathan's tone was impeccably neutral, but Reese sensed a watchfulness beneath the surface. He retrieved Reese's bag, holding the door open. Their fingers brushed briefly during the transfer, a jolt of static snapping between them. Reese flinched. Minutely. Nathan's expression remained impassive. Enjoy the retreat, Mr. Thorne. Eris strode towards the grand entrance, feeling Nathan's gaze on his back like a physical touch. The weekend stretched before him, a gauntlet of hollow pleasantries. Strategic networking disguised as leisure, and the suffocating company of people who saw him only as a balance sheet. He longed, absurdly, for the quiet sanctuary of the Mercedes, for the low hum of the engine, and Nathan's calm presence. The retreat was predictably tedious. Reese played his part flawlessly, the charming, powerful CEO. He discussed market trends by the infinity pool, negotiated potential partnerships, over lobster rolls, and smiled politely at vapid anecdotes. Inside, he felt detached, adrift. Images intruded. Nathan's steady hands on the wheel, the genuine warmth when he spoke of his nephew, the solid feel of his shoulder beneath Arise's head. The carefully curated luxury around him felt hollow. Compared to the simple authenticity he'd glimpsed, Saturday night brought a black-tie charity gala on the manicured lawn. Crystal chandeliers hung from trees, an orchestra played bland classics, and champagne flowed like expensive water. Arise circulated, a fixed smile on his face, feeling like an exhibit. He spotted Nathan once, standing respectfully near the perimeter, in a crisply pressed black suit, observing the scene with detached professionalism. Their eyes met across the sea of tuxedos and glittering gowns. Nathan gave the smallest, almost imperceptible nod. It wasn't deference. It felt like acknowledgement. A lifeline thrown across the chasm of privilege and pretense. Reese felt a surge of something fierce and protective. Nathan didn't belong in this gilded cage either. Later, escaping the throng for a moment of solitude near a darkened rose garden, Eris heard a familiar voice. Low, calm. Nathan was speaking softly on his phone near a service entrance, partially hidden by a towering hydrangea bush. No, it's fine, Maya, really. Just a fancy party. Quiet night otherwise. Yeah, tell Benji Uncle Nate says, keep practicing those sprints, Okay, love you too. Bye. The tenderness in his voice, the simple domesticity of the conversation, struck Aris like a physical blow. Uncle Nate, a man who calmed boardroom tycoons and soothed worried sisters. The contrast between Nathan's grounded reality and the artificial extravagance surrounding them was jarring. Aris felt a pang of profound loneliness, sharper than any he'd felt in his empty penthouse. He stepped back into the light, the noise of the party crashing over him again. He felt Nathan's presence nearby, a silent anchor in the swirling superficiality. During a lull, Eris found himself gravitating towards the perimeter, drawn inexplicably to that point of quiet strength. Everything all right, sir? Nathan asked. As Eris approached, his posture attentive but relaxed. Just needed air, Eris muttered, loosening his bow tie. It's a lot. Nathan nodded slightly, his gaze sweeping the crowd with understanding. It has its own rhythm, sir. Different kind of endurance test. Reese huffed a humorless laugh. Endurance is right. He leaned against a cool stone pillar beside Nathan, close enough to feel the heat radiating from him in the cool night air. Proximity felt charged, dangerous, yet utterly necessary. Your call sounded nice, family? A flicker of surprise crossed Nathan's face, quickly masked. My sister Maya, checking in. My nephew Benji is apparently terrorizing their living room rug with his newfound speed. A genuine smile touched Arise's lips, the first real one all evening. Sounds like a worthy pursuit. He paused, the champagne courage mingling with a deeper yearning. Do you ever get tired of it, Nathan? Is it driving? The waiting? He gestured vaguely at the glittering scene, serving. Nathan turned his head, his dark eyes meeting Arise's directly. The professional veil was thin tonight. It's a job, Mr. Thorne, like any other. Some days are long, some clients are demanding a ghost of a smile, but it pays the bills. Lets me be there for my family when they need me. There's dignity in that. He held Arise's gaze. And sometimes the company makes it worthwhile. The unspoken acknowledgement hung heavy between them. Asterisk your company. Makes it worthwhile. Asterisk the air crackled. Eris felt his breath catch. The noise of the party faded to a distant murmur. Before Eris could formulate a response, a coherent thought, a booming voice shattered the moment. Aris, there you are. Hiding from the fundraising committee, you sly dog? Charles Henderson, the host, clapped a heavy hand on Arise's shoulder. Reeking of cigar smoke and expensive brandy, Nathan instantly shifted, stepping back half a pace. His expression smoothing into polite neutrality, the moment of connection severed as cleanly as a knife. Sir, he murmured, a quiet signal of resumed roles. Eris forced his public persona back into place, turning to Charles with a practiced smile, just strategizing. Charles. Can't let you win the auction too easily, he allowed himself to be. Steered back into the fray, throwing one last glance over his shoulder. Nathan stood watching him go, his expression unreadable in the shadows. The rest of the evening was agony. Rhys felt like an actor trapped in a bad play, counted the minutes until he could escape. Finally, pleading an early conference call, he extricated himself. Nathan materialized at the edge of the lawn, the Mercedes waiting like a silent sanctuary. The drive back to the guest house was short, the silence thick and potent. Rhys felt the weight of the unspoken conversation, the intimacy of the moment by the pillar, pressing against the confines of the car. He couldn't let it end like this. As Nathan pulled up to the discreet guest cottage, Eris didn't immediately move. Rain had begun to patter softly on the roof. "Nathan," he began, his voice rough. "Sir." Nathan turned slightly in the driver's seat, his profile outlined by the dashboard lights. Eris searched for the right words. The words that wouldn't shatter the delicate balance, that wouldn't demand something Nathan couldn't give. "Thank you," he finally said, the inadequacy of the words grating. 4. Enduring the endurance test. And 4. He faltered. Then met Nathan's eyes in the dim light. For the company, Nathan held his gaze. The rain intensified, drumming, a steady rhythm. In the confined space, the scent of damp earth and Nathan's cedar warmth filled the air. The professional distance felt paper-thin. "It's my job, sir," Nathan replied softly. But his eyes, deep and unflinching in the gloom, said something entirely different. "I know, I felt it too." He got out, retrieving Eris's bag. Eris followed, stepping into the rain. Nathan held an umbrella over him, just like that first night, their bodies closed under its shelter. Eris looked up, rain catching in his hair. Nathan's face was inches away, its expression a complex map of restraint and something else, a quiet intensity, a question held in check, for a heartbeat time suspended. The rain, the distant music from the main house, the thrumming tension between them. Eris saw the pulse beating at Nathan's temple, the slight parting of his lips. He could feel the warmth radiating from him, the solidity, the urge to bridge. That impossible gap, to abandon pretense, was overwhelming. But Nathan took a deliberate half-step back, breaking the spell. "Good night, Mr. Thorne," he said, his voice low but firm, placing the umbrella handle carefully into Eris's hand. His fingers brushed Eris's again, a deliberate, lingering contact that sent sparks up Eris's arm. "Try to get some sleep." He turned and walked towards the driver's door of the Mercedes, not looking back. Leaving Eris standing alone in the rain, clutching the umbrella, the ghost of Nathan's touch burning on his skin. The unspoken lines between them hadn't been crossed, but they'd been traced in the humid Hamptons night, bold and undeniable. The retreat was over, but the real negotiation, Eris knew, trembling slightly despite the warm rain, had only just begun. The car pulled away, taillights vanishing into the downpour, leaving Eris standing on the threshold of something terrifyingly real. The drive back to the city was a study in contained tension. Rain lashed the Mercedes, a gray curtain blurring the Hamptons into a watercolor wash. Inside, the silence was a physical presence, thick with everything unsaid. Rhys stared out the window, replaying the feel of Nathan's fingers against his. The deliberate brush under the umbrella, the raw vulnerability in Nathan's eyes before he'd stepped back. The cool professionalism Nathan had resumed felt like a suit 2 sizes too small. Every glance Eris stole at the rearview mirror met Nathan's focused gaze on the road. His expression unreadable, a carefully reconstructed fortress. Eris felt scraped raw, Hampton's artifice, the constant performance, the sudden terrifying depth of his own feelings. It all coalesced into a suffocating pressure behind his ribs. He was used to commanding boardrooms, not navigating the treacherous landscape of his own heart. The power dynamic loomed large and ugly. Nathan was his employee. Any move Eris made, any word spoken, carried the weight of that imbalance. Could trust exist there? Could anything real? He spent the journey wrestling with it, the thrum of the engine, a monotonous counterpoint to the storm in his head. He wanted to speak, to shatter the silence, but fear choked him. Fear of rejection, fear of complicating Nathan's life, fear. Of the unknown territory opening before him, they reached the city under a bruised, twilight sky, the rain finally easing to a drizzle. The familiar streets felt alien.
Yes.
Nathan navigated the wet pavement towards Arisa's building with his usual flawless precision. The silence stretched, taut as a wire, until the car slid to its customary stop beneath the awning. Nathan was out. Instantly, umbrella deployed against the lingering damp. He opened the rear door. "Here you are, Mr. Thorne." His voice was calm, professional, devoid of the undercurrent Eris had sensed before. It felt like a door clicking shut. Eris stepped. Out, the familiar scent of wet pavement and city exhaust filling his nostrils. He stood facing Nathan, close under the umbrella's shelter, just like the first night, just like the Hamptons. But this time, the distance felt immense. Nathan held the umbrella, his posture correct, his gaze fixed politely over Arisa's shoulder. The pressure inside Eris built to a breaking point. He couldn't let it end like this, not after everything, not after feeling that connection, that terrifying, wonderful spark of something real. "Nathan," Eris said, his voice rough, scraping against the silence. It wasn't the smooth command of Mr. Thorne, it was raw, human. Nathan's eyes flickered down to meet his, a flicker of surprise breaking through the professional mask. Sir Eris took a shaky breath, felt exposed, foolish, standing here. In his expensive suit, his carefully curated life crumbling around the edges because of the man holding the umbrella. That night, in the Hamptons, by the pillar. He swallowed hard, forcing the words out. "What you said about the company, making it worthwhile." He faltered, seeing the wariness deepen in Nathan's eyes. "And earlier in the car, when he couldn't bring himself to say, fell asleep on your shoulder? I felt it too, Nathan. This thing between us, it's not just professional, not for me." He braced himself for the polite deflection, the gentle reminder of boundaries, the crushing return to employer and employee. Nathan didn't move, held the umbrella steady, the rain pattering softly on the fabric. His gaze remained locked on Arisa's, intense, searching. The silence stretched, filled only by the distant city hum and the frantic drumming of Arisa's own heart. He saw the struggle in Nathan's face, the ingrained caution, the awareness of risk, the weight of their positions. Finally Nathan spoke, his voice low, stripped of its professional cadence, revealing the man beneath. "Mr. Thorne, Eris." The use of his first name was a jolt, intimate and terrifying. "This complicates things, significantly." "I know," Eris whispered, the admission a relief and a terror. "God, Nathan, I know it does. The imbalance. Your job. It's a minefield. I shouldn't have." He ran a hand through his damp hair, feeling utterly lost. "But I can't pretend it's not there. I can't go back to just rearview mirrors. In silence, not after." He gestured helplessly between them. "Not after feeling like I finally found solid ground." Nathan's gaze didn't waver. He studied Eris's face, the exhaustion, the vulnerability, the raw honesty laid bare. Eris saw the moment Nathan made his decision. Subtle shift in his posture, a softening around his eyes, a quiet exhale that seemed to release years of careful restraint. Slowly, deliberately, Nathan lowered the umbrella, letting the faint drizzle touch them both. The gesture felt symbolic, dropping the shield. He took a half-step closer, closing the distance Eris had been too afraid to bridge. "It complicates things," Nathan repeated, his voice a low rumble, warm and impossibly close. "But complicated doesn't mean impossible." He reached out not to open the building door, but to gently brush a stray raindrop from Arisa's cheekbone with his thumb. The touch was electric, tender, a world away from the brief contact under the Hamptons' umbrella. "Solid ground," he murmured, his thumb lingering for a heartbeat. "Yeah, I felt that too." Arisa's breath hitched. The simple touch, the quiet affirmation, shattered the last of his defenses. He leaned into it, his eyes searching Nathan's, finding not caution now, but a reflection of his own tumultuous hope. "What do we do?" The question was a whisper, barely audible over the city's distant pulse. Nathan's lips curved into a small, genuine smile, the first unguarded one Aris had ever truly seen. It transformed his face, radiating warmth and quiet resolve. "We figure it out," he said softly, "one step at a time, carefully, honestly." He didn't drop his hand. His thumb traced a slow, deliberate line down Arisa's cheek, stopping just below his jawline. "Starting with dinner, as Mr. Thorne and his driver, as Eris and Nathan," the world seemed to tilt. The imposing glass tower, the weight of his corporate life, the years of isolation, they receded, blurred by the rain, and the intensity in Nathan's eyes. Dinner. A beginning. On equal footing. Yes. Aris breathed, the word thick with emotion. "Yes, Nathan. Dinner." He covered Nathan's hand where it rested against his jaw, feeling the calluses, the strength, the warmth seeping into his skin. The rain fell softly around them, washing the city clean, mirroring the fresh start unfolding under the awning. Nathan smiled fully then, a brilliant, unburdened smile that crinkled the corners of his eyes. He squeezed Arisa's hand gently before releasing it, though the connection thrummed between them, stronger than ever. "Okay," he said, his voice steady, holding a promise. "Okay." He picked up Arisa's overnight bag from where it sat on the wet pavement. "Go on up," he said, nodding towards the building. "Get dry. He paused, a new kind of warmth in his gaze. "I'll call you later. We'll make a plan." Eris nodded, unable to speak past the lump in his throat. He watched as Nathan, holding the bag not as a chauffeur, but as a man stepping onto new ground, opened the heavy glass door for him. Their eyes met one last time, a silent exchange of understanding, anticipation, and the fragile, exhilarating beginning of something real. Aris walked into the lobby, not feeling the usual oppressive silence. He felt the lingering warmth of Nathan's touch on his skin, the echo of his promise in the air. The rain-streaked city outside didn't look cold and impersonal anymore. It looked like a canvas awaiting a new story. He pressed the elevator button, a slow, hopeful smile spreading across his face. For the first time in longer than he could remember, the journey hadn't ended. It had finally, truly begun. Not in the back seat this time, but walking forward, side by side, into the unknown, beautiful complication. If this story moved you, help Eris and Nathan's journey continue. Do the thing. Like if you held your breath when Nathan brushed the raindrop from Arisa's cheek. Subscribe for more slow burn, class-defying romances. Share with fellow lovers.